before I get into this chapter, we're going to get a change of pace here. The next rest of the story really might feel a little bit choppy. Now, I could tell you about every mission that we sent out and every council meeting that we had and everything that we were doing, and it would take another 80 chapters and it'd be super boring. So I'm going to be skipping parts and just covering like the more exciting parts of the story from this point. So yeah, I'll try to catch the important parts of what happened up to everything, and I'll tell you the parts that you want to hear. So this is the rest of G.
Took you long enough.
Yeah, good thing you chose an easy spot.
Chapter 17. In the last while, I'd been recovering from the mission to the Gate Seekers. Scar was training the Travelers, Andrew was back in school, Darren was still recovering under the watch of Falaire, one of the palace maids, and I had nothing really to do. I mean, I had plenty to do, but yeah, I decided to go check on the Seerguard, because it had been a while since I'd visited them, and they'd done a lot in the last forever since I'd visited. I rode Blaze through the city and marveled again at how much we'd been doing. It had been from a few days to a few weeks, I can't remember, since the Gate Seekers and since everything before that. And we'd done a lot in Demise Cry itself. Pretty much all of the cleanup was done, and buildings were being built. One of my favorite additions to the city was the Seerguard complex, the series of buildings that we built for them. They didn't need it to survive, but I could tell that having grounds for them to train in and to accept new seers was rejuvenating for them, and it was exciting for me too. The fact that we were giving them resources made them excited and ready to help. So we just finished the complex, and I came through, and it was beautiful, especially against the autumn trees that were coming through the city. What? The trees' leaves were changing color, and it fit the orange roof of the complex, which shone in the early sun. It was beautiful. The orange on orange made the complex feel like it was part of the trees around it here along the river bend. As I made my way up, I realized that Blaze and I matched it as well. We'd recently gotten my suit repaired, the one that had been damaged back in Nightfall. And yeah, so the gray suit with the small cape in the back and the orange ISO crystals glowing along the neckline. It was odd to be wearing it again because it had felt like a prison back the first time I'd worn it, but it was a really durable suit. It worked. It was kind of a symbol when I was riding on Blaze, and he had Orange racing along his mane and his tail as well. But we made our way to the complex, and there was a group of people gathered around the front, and Ferendo was passing something out to the people, and he looked up, and his face lit up when he saw me and Blaze coming up, and he waved me over. I said, "Hey, what's going on here? Ferendo, who are these people?" And he brushed some of the silver hair out of his blue face, and he said, "Some of the Scanorans have come to join us." And I said, "Well, that is great to hear." I welcomed the Scanorans, giving them a salute, and I said, "We are glad to have you. The Seerguard was never meant to be just a few people. We want every sire, or every seer, to join us, if they're willing to help us stop the Prophithians and end this war." And the Scanorans, I could tell, were excited about it as well. They were all ages and temperaments represented in this group that was here, ready to learn how to sire. I joined Ferendo to help pass out packets to them, and we directed them to the rest of the Seerguard, who are already further on in the complex, in an open-roofed training ground that was there. And I'd been part of the... they told me about the packets, and I said that was a great idea, but I'd never actually seen them, and it was kind of cool to pass them out to the people. Just a few things to help them get better at siring. There were some instructions in the little booklet that had been put together, and a cushion to sit on, and an orange ISO crystal to help focus destiny. And as we brought them in, every member of the Seerguard took 3 or 4 of the Scanorans and helped them start to learn how to sire and what they should be doing. It was so cool to see these Ceremaians using what they'd been learning. They'd come so far, and it was crazy to me to see that, and very rewarding for me. As after we'd finished packing out the packets, I walked along and gave a little bit of input every now and again as the Seerguards were talking, and just observed to see how they were doing. And having me around, I could tell, boosted their spirits. They were excited to show what they had learned. After a while, though, I just kind of stepped to the side and let them do their thing, and got thinking, wondering how long it would be before they would pass me up and be better seers than I was. I was a strong traveler, and I was a strong seer as well, but the Seerguard was spending hours every day training, and I was doing all kinds of random things as Emperor. And I figured it wouldn't take too long for them to pass me up. I reached out to Destiny and kind of watched for his shadowy form. It didn't appear all the time, and it didn't show up today, but I still heard his voice as I asked, how long will it be before they're better than I am? And Destiny said, "Oh, don't worry about that." He said, "They will never be quite as attuned as you are. In those few days that your siring was strongest, we both changed a lot." He said, "And to some degree, I'm always gonna carry a part of you through my force." And I thought, well, that's kind of sweet. Because he'd never had a sire that sired as much and had so much to do as I had, not for millennia, and he probably wouldn't for another few thousand years. And it was reassuring to know that, I was more attuned to destiny than others could really get to be. I'd never be obsolete. But at the same time, I felt a wave of worry wash over me. I thought, am I really the best person for this job? I said the same to Destiny. I said, just a few weeks ago, I was so mad at Darren, and for no reason, that I couldn't even control myself. Am I really the right person to have like be Destiny's sire. And he said, that's the constant struggle that my associates and I have to work with. We have to deal with imperfect mortals. And he said, but it will always work out. No matter how bad things are, destiny will make its course. And I said, but what if it doesn't? And he said, it will. Maybe not in the time that you understand, but it will work out. He said, that's something you mortals can't understand. There is perfection. Your imperfection cannot affect perfection in the slightest. In the same way that you cannot create true perfection, because you are imperfect. He said, this system is perfect. You won't mess it up. Just do what you can do. I'll take care of the rest. It always felt like every conversation I had with Destiny left me with more questions than I had answers, but I didn't even know how to ask them. Regardless, I thought, all right, we're going to come back to this. But it looked like the Seerguard was finishing up giving instructions, and the Skinnorans were getting ready to leave. And I turned to the Seerguard and I said, I hope you don't have anywhere to be. And they said, no, we're just planning on training for the next little bit. Just running drills and practicing siring. And I said, well, great. He said, you've done a whole lot of training. Just as the Skinnorans were finishing leaving, I said, I think you're about ready for your first mission. That was exciting for them. Even Fernando perked up at that. And I said, what? Really? Our first mission? I said, yeah, you are absolutely ready for it. And I gathered them together and found a table and pulled out a map that I'd brought, pulled it out of my scabbard and laid it across the table, a map of the surrounding area. Yeah, like that much, kind of. Not so much on the mountains. But anyway, I pulled out a map. I said, as you know, Samtath and Demise Cry are free of Profithians. But the rest of the world of darkness is still in darkness. There's still Profithians running the world. And even in the surrounding area, there are small settlements full of Profithians. I said, in the next coming weeks, we're going to start sending you out with travelers to clear the Profithians away, to send them back to the world of becoming, so that we can truly fix the world of truth, Saramea. I said, but today we just want to get a feel for what's going on in the surrounding area. So we want you to go out and see what's happening, get a feel for how many Profithians there are, and where we need to go to send them back to becoming. And Chessa raised her hand. I said, yes. And she said, shouldn't we just be able to sire and know kind of what's going on? I said, yes, you should. Destiny knows, but in order for him to get that information to you, you need to have something to connect it with in your mind. And going out is going to help you receive that information. So, yes. And again, she raised her hand. I said, yes. And she said, why don't you and Blaze do this? You can travel faster than we can, and I'm sure you could sire from here and find it out. I said, that is a wonderful question. I want you to think about that as you go. Good luck. And with that, I stepped back, and Axel, another of the seers, raised his hand. And he said, where are we going? You've only given us partners to work with. What are our orders? I said, the rest of your orders are coming from Destiny. You have to decide with him where you're going and what exactly you're doing when you get there. I'm a little less sure of them before. They made their way out. I'd paired them up, and some of them went out immediately to figure out what they were doing along the way. Others waited here and looked at the map to decide a place that they would head. And before long, they'd all kind of spread out until there were just two seers left, Fiorando and Panera. Fiorando, the blue-skinned, silver-haired guy, and Panera had the four-armed, not Prophithian, the four-armed Ceremaean. And they were going to try to sire from here and see what they could see. They were both on opposite ends of the courtyard to give each other space to sire. And as I rolled up the map and put it back, I watched the two, and Furanda was sitting there, his face scrunched up, eyes closed as he was trying to focus, and finally gave an exasperated sigh and came up, and I said, "Gee, I can't do it." And I said, "What do you mean? If there's anyone that can do it, it's you. Like, you two are strong enough to get this." He said, "No, I can't focus with this sense of dread that came out of nowhere. I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, something's wrong, and I can't define it, but I can't focus on the mission you've given us." And Panera came up and rested one of his forehands on Philando's shoulder, and he said, "The same here. I can't when there's something wrong going on." I said, "What are you talking about?" And there was no sense of dread. I reached out to Destiny, and I said, "What's going on?" And Destiny said, "It's part of the system. I cannot tell you. Why do you think I had you set up the Seerguard?" And even without Destiny telling me things, I began to feel the dread as well. And I told the two, Destiny's not telling me anything. Get your orders from him if he's telling you things. I'm headed back to the Keltis. Do what you need to do. And with that, I ran out, calling for Blaze. He ran up the riverbank and ran alongside me so I could jump with his sire-assisted leap onto his back. As we raced back to the Keltis, I reached into my scabbard, pulled out my mobile, and began to call Scar. But even before it had come through, I started to realize what was happening. I couldn't sense anything because it had to do with my anchor world for siring. Earth. A world that had nothing to do with Prophithians until they had named it the World of Hope. End of chapter 17.